Here we go.
We love a flub. Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Rondon Davis. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the leader of artistic curation and marketing here at Crowded Fire Theater. Welcome to the night 2 of our solo performance showcase. I am so excited to close out this incredible showcase with some incredible panelists, some incredible clips. I also want to shout out my incredible co-leader, Riley Allison, who's running it on the back end. They are the leader of production and community here at Crowded Fire Theater. There's a little picture of Riley there. And before we begin, I want to acknowledge that I am zooming in from Huichin, home of the Lishan Chichenyo-speaking Ohlone people, who are strongly present on their land, which is unceded and which we have colonized and settled as Oakland. Crowded Fire's offices sit on the land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people. In order to support the local indigenous communities and stewardship, rematriation, and the rightful return of their land, we encourage you to support local land back movements through different donation platforms. So for folks located in the East Bay, you can support via the Shumi land tax, which is run by Segorite Land Trust. And that is a voluntary land tax for anyone living and working on Huichin. I'll drop those links in the chat in just a moment. And for folks living in San Francisco and the peninsula, we invite you to check out the Unikin land tax, which goes to support the Ramaytush Ohlone people in their stewardship and rematriation efforts as well. And I'll make sure I'll drop those over. We're thrilled to have the showcase. It's kind of the culmination of our intensives program. Our intensive are part of Crowded Fire's larger initiatives, which includes our Ignite Fund, which is a grant for designers and technicians. It also includes our Resilience and Development Lab, which is a 2-year cohort for playwrights. It also includes, again, our audition intensive and our solo performance intensive, which we offer free of charge to local artists, and also our internships and mentorships for emerging theater artists and theater leaders here in the Bay Area. This solo performance showcase sort of is born out of these initiatives and these intensives, and I'll pass it off to the incredible M. Graham Smith and Dawn Monique Williams to tell you more.
Hello, Dawn. We are back 2 days later.
I'm really excited for round 2. Wednesday was so nourishing.
Yeah, it was an amazing night. So many discoveries, which we can get into. But maybe for folks that are just joining us tonight for the first time, we should do a little introduction of ourselves. And I'd love it if you'd go first.
Sure. I'm Dawn Monique Williams. I use she, her pronouns. I am a Bay Area theater maker and educator and work primarily as a director. Across the nation, haha, and just been working with you on this solo lab for the last few years here because I really believe in generative work.
All right. I'm M. Graham Smith, he, him pronouns. I am also a freelance director and educator, sometimes producer, and sometimes playwright. And my deep interest in solo work began because I worked on a project with an amazing artist, Kevin Ralston, called Deal with the Dragon. And from there, it really just opened up the doors for me about what solo work can do and how, as some of our panelists said last night, solo work can be an act of liberation. And I really believe that it is liberating both for the performer, but also for the form as we kind of bypass gatekeepers, bypass some of the traditions, and we can talk about some more of that as we go. But I love developing solo work, and I feel like we got to experience a little bit of that joy this summer as we led the intensive.
Yeah, and we've been doing the intensive since the world went online. And this was born out of, as Lee mentioned, some of the Crowded Fire initiatives where Crowded Fire had already been doing an audition workshop for years. And then some of the participants wanted to dabble a little bit in generating their own monologues. And you really took that and flew with it and brought me on board. And we have really discovered the power in creating space for artists to practice their autonomy, to see the myriad ways that solo work can take shape, can be autobiographical, it can be movement, clown, dance, it can be compilations of characters created from thin air. And I think, as Wednesday showed, working with these cohorts have yielded fruit in all of those directions.
Yes. I loved one of the things that you said yesterday, that so often actors kind of find themselves in this position where they're just interpretive artists, and you were really advocating for that kind of creative and generative spine and core that is really part of an actor's toolkit, and how that gets to come forward in solo work. And in many ways, like coloring outside the lines, or like kind of reinventing the form, happens almost as a matter of course as you dive into like, what can I present with my body in a room.
So, building on what we shared the other night, what the audience can expect tonight is a series of works in progress from members of our most recent cohort that took place this summer. So, tonight there will be 5 works in progress, each about 5 minutes in length, coming out of the work we did this summer with the cohort of 16. Every year there's high demand, and we try and accommodate as many artists as we can. And so we look forward to coming around again at the end or towards the summer or early fall of 2026, offering the solo workshop again.
Um, And in addition to those performances, which you'll see 5-minute clips of tonight, in the middle of tonight's broadcast, the centerpiece, if you will, is going to be a panel discussion between 3 incredible solo performers who've gifted us their time tonight, and their wisdom: Shanae Simon, Anthony Michael Jefferson, and Joyful Raven. We'll talk with the 3 of them for about 30 minutes, and see what wisdom they can drop on us about their careers as solo performers and what it means to do solo work as artists. And then we'll get some more videos.
Yep, that is exactly the flow. Um, so should we launch into our first set of videos here, Graham?
Yes, let's play our first set of tapes. And maybe we should just introduce the first 2
Yeah.
that are coming up, so people get some context about who these are.
Great. So up first, we have Shayla Kerr with Amelie, the other side of San Francisco. Amelie, who due to AI taking over the workforce, gets laid off at the last nonprofit in the world while living with her devout Christian Congolese parents. On a date for an arranged marriage, she hits her head, resulting in amnesia. She must find her identity through sensuous adventures.
I can't wait to see that one. And then right after that, we're going to see Michelle Rapkin with Claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is an excerpt from a work in progress that explores, resists the identity of second generation behavior. What right do we have to claim our parents' history as our own? Where do their expectations live in our bodies and in our dreams? What relationship can we have with ancestors we've never met? So let's see these clips, and then we'll be right back with you.
Mom has me dressed in this big silk dress. I guess like coming off the impression that I will, be a wife. And I go and I sit with him and I tell him I don't really want to be here, but I'm gonna try. And he's telling me how we're gonna have 4 kids. Oh, I will have 4 kids. And he will stuff me with them like a turkey. 4 kids. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, dang. Like, and nobody, so we're sitting at the African restaurant. It's nobody is paying attention. Everyone's going on like it's regular. I'm like, this is like, and he's like, yes, you will be a wife. You'll stay at home. You won't have to worry about working anymore. I'm like, okay, cool, cool, cool. But I like to do things. He's like, no, 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 no. You'll be a wife. 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, okay. And then like, so he goes on like that, and then I'm like, okay, like I'm getting scared because, well, like, what will I do? I had all these other things, and I was independent, and I had a job, and I was someone, I think, because they say like when you have a job, you are somebody, and you have a purpose. So I'm like, I was somebody. So I'm like, well, like 1, 2, 3, like, where's my wife gonna go? And he's like, well, you will be my wife. And I'm like, oh. So I will just be your wife, and I will cook fondue, which is a cassava dish that takes hours and hours in the kitchen, that is not meant for a working woman, which I used to be, but I guess I'm not anymore. And he says I will be a wife, and I just get so scared, and I get hyperventilating, and then I kind of crash out, and I kind of panic, and then the silk dress is so long that I kind of just panic a little, and then I kind of walk, and I kind of end up going out the store, and then I end up slipping, and then I fall. And then I fall. And then I guess I passed out and can't really remember anything before 2025. Yeah, I remember getting hired beginning of 2025. I think that was just before, I think it was just after Trump started his presidency, and I can't remember. Just can't remember. I lost my daughter. I lost my daughter because before the accident, she went to church. So she knew God. After the accident, she said she does not know what to do. She doesn't want to go to church. She says she wants to find other ways, find other things. I said, what other things? Me, I came here, I knew nothing, I knew nobody. 1996, I found what San Francisco Sanctuary City. I had my word, I knew God, that's all I knew. No, my daughter is lost. She won't go to church with me. They say, Amalie, come to church. She says, Mommy, I am your daughter. I promise I am your daughter. I think I need to listen. I need to follow my curiosities. I don't remember anything. I don't know, but I need to know something after the accident that I can only know if I just find God in other ways. But you have to trust me. You have to trust me because you have to remember I am your daughter. I cannot go to church with you right now, but I know God. I am your daughter, so I know God. I lost my daughter. I lost my daughter because she does not want to work. She does not want to work a regular job in San Francisco. Hey! Hey!
My nightmare had murders in it, but that wasn't what scared me. The bodies were being wrapped in shrouds and hung up somehow like laundry at a dry cleaner's. And the bundles were crowding around me and closing in on me as I struggled to make it to an open space I could see but not reach, where there were people who could help me. My claustrophobia keeps getting worse. I had an aunt who died in the end because she couldn't stand to wear the mask that would have allowed her to breathe. She couldn't bear it. I hope I don't end up like that, trapped by my fear of being trapped. I don't even try to watch horror movies, but I still can't protect myself from a certain kind of scene that can pop up in any movie, even a documentary. I'm delaying describing it to you because even talking about it gives me the creeps, but here goes. I don't want to watch someone try to crawl through a narrow, cramped space where it's impossible for them to turn around and get out. Ugh! Ugh! Just even thinking about it makes my heart beat faster and my calves cramp up. No escape rooms for me. I'm okay in a tunnel as long as I can see the light at the end, but the long ones, ooh, they have me. Same with low ceiling parking garages. The feeling of being closed in, confined. I've known the story as long as I can remember, but it's still hard to take in. My mother would always tell it to me in a very matter-of-fact tone, like an adventure, a tale of pluck, as if she and her brother survived a shipwreck by building a hut out of coconut shells on a desert island. It wasn't until I became a mother myself that the reality of what happened really penetrated me. She would always say, when I was about your age, she was 6 and 7, 2 years. She spent 2 years in a single room. Rule number 1, never leave the room. Never open the curtains. Always move softly. Speak only in whispers. If someone is coming, hide under the extra blankets and quilts. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Think of the 6 and 7-year-olds you know, the 1st and 2nd graders. Think of yourself at that age. Her father had found that apartment for her and her brother to hide in, but it wasn't possible for him or her mother to join them there. He found another apartment where the two of them could hide. They lived in a hole in the wall, concealed behind a dresser. There are conflicting accounts of how they died. In both, they were somehow betrayed and discovered. In one version, they were taken out into the street and shot. In the other, they were sealed up in the hole and left to die. Honestly, I don't know what to say. I get this far and I get stuck. I can't. Maybe my grandparents are telling me to shut up already. I mean, does it even make sense to call them my grandparents? I never knew them. They never knew me. In the Jewish tradition, they say, may their memory be for a blessing. But I have no memory. I just have this story. I just have claustrophobia.
All right. Let's get some
Wow.
love for those presentations in the chat, please.
Wow. Yeah. Ah, family.
So great to see those two pieces, Dawn, after kind of seeing all the seeds from those pieces and the work they did on those pieces in the workshop. They're really quite powerful.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Um, and both with a different tenor and different texture, but both unpacking like what we like carry with us from our families, from our parents, what responsibilities we have to those legacies as we try and forge our own. Beautiful work.
Yeah, beautiful.
Ooh. Well, and
Um,
now Graham, you're gonna host tonight's panel with our esteemed colleagues.
It's always hard to go after you, Dawn, because you set a high bar. So we'll see what we do.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure it'll be brilliant.
let's introduce our panelists, these amazing artists who are going to spend some time with us. And I'll start with Janae Simon, who's a bicoastal, multifaceted artist, actor, director, and consent educator spanning across the New York metropolitan area and the San Francisco Bay Area. Um, in all her work, she's dedicated to creating braver spaces where artists can be vulnerable and play. She's worked at Aurora Theater Company, Berkeley Repertory Theater, American Conservatory Theater, California Shakespeare Theater, and more. She performed Dale Orlando Smith's solo play Stoop Stories at Aurora Theater in 2021 and recently created and performed her first original solo performance at Counterpulse. The piece Oya Undrowned is an interdisciplinary project incorporating poetry, movement, music, song that will imagine Black female survival in a world that is inhospitable. Undrowned calls on us to gather the courage to rip apart the facade of normalcy and productivity to figure out how to survive.
Woo. Ah, great. And joining you also this evening is Anthony Michael Jefferson, lovingly known as AJ. AJ is an actor, activist, playwright, and an accomplished chef. And following 23 years of incarceration at the Soledad State Prison, AJ took up performing, and while on tour with the show The Box, wrote an essay called The Bumpy Road Less Traveled, and that essay has gone on to be the basis and foundation of his solo story about life behind the walls of the industrial prison system. AJ is also a surfer from Hermosa Beach, California, who is deeply in love with community and culture.
All right. And finally, we have Joyful Raven. Joyful Raven is an award-winning actor, director, and story midwife, known for her powerful and thought-provoking solo shows. Born into an iconic political theater family, she's been creating theater for as long as she can remember. Her first solo comedy, Tales of a Sexual Tomboy, won Best of Fringe at the 2016 San Francisco International Fringe Festival and had an off-Broadway run in 2017. Her show Breed or Bust was named a critic's pick by the San Francisco Chronicle after receiving critical acclaim at the 2023 Edinburgh Fringe Festival, where it was nominated for an Opie. Before we meet these three amazing panelists, we just wanted to share a brief clip of Janae's work to give you some context, and then we will see all of our panelists on the Zoom screen soon.
So exciting.
Stomach empty, like stomach inside out, hungry, hungry. You know, he puked every time, every single. You gotta go, 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 you gotta go.
Whether the black of the Negro resides in the reticular membrane between the skin, whether it proceeds from the color of the blood, the color of the bile, or from that of some other secretion, the difference is fixed in nature. Besides
Down,
those
baby,
of color,
down by the roller
figure,
coaster,
and
sweet,
hair,
sweet babe. I'll
there
never
are
let you go.
other
Shimmy,
physical
shimmy, cocoa pop,
distinctions
shimmy,
of
shimmy,
human
pop.
difference
Shimmy, shimmy,
and
cocoa
race.
pop, shimmy, shimmy,
They
pop.
have less
Grab,
hair,
grab, stick in, small, softness, softness.
I'm just a tree in the middle of the forest. I'm not asleep.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Uh, it is such a joy to be in this virtual space with all of you tonight. I've been looking forward to this all week. Um, and, you know, we can be casual here in this in this virtual space. I have questions that I have for everybody, but if you want to ask each other questions, if you want to respond to things that other people say, feel free. This is a conversation. But thank you all for being here, and for your work. Um, and I want to just start out our conversation, in the same way that Dawn started our conversation on Wednesday, and start by asking, solo work is hard. You're the you're the only one on stage, and there's nowhere to hide, and you all actually are, have long list of experience doing work that's not solo work. So why solo work? What pulled you into the orbit of solo work, to begin with? And I'd love to start with Janae.
Yeah, solo work is daunting. And it's honestly not something that I had on my bucket list. I love when you and Don were talking and like the role of the actor is like to interpret. I will interpret all the things, but the idea of creating my own work was terrifying. And so a couple of things came into play where I was just meditating on some things. I was thinking about some of the myths, the Drexia myth, myth of an underwater civilization that during the Atlantic slave trade, the African individuals that were thrown off or decided to jump into the sea, thinking about that, thinking about other myths like the laughing barrel, where you stick your head, that African Americans couldn't laugh or, smile in public and they had to stick their heads in barrels. And so I was thinking about those things and like trying to make sense of them in my body. But then also as an actor, really trying to think about how do I make work outside of institutions? Because I can't always rely on institutions to give me work. And so how do I generate work? So it got to a point where those two things were coming into play. And then I just kind of leapt and committed myself to doing solo work and then had to do it. So that's kind of how it came about.
That is so cool. I want to follow up, just briefly, if you don't mind, because you did a solo play that was written by someone else,
Yeah.
and then you wrote your own piece. How did you experience the difference between those two?
Um, I mean, they were drastically different. I think well, one of the most valuable things I learned in doing solo work written by other people is that like you have to create a whole world. And so if you have multiple characters, if I created the characters robustly enough, then there were like 10 people on stage with me energetically. And so that's so much easier than being one person in front of an audience, but being like 10 people. And I just get to step into these different characters. So that was what was important with other people's work. But with this, it was kind of freeing, and we can talk more about it later, but I didn't view it as like a theatrical performance. I was thinking of it more so as performance art. And so that freed me from, like, my mind refused to learn lines because I was like, it's not that, it's this. And so looking at it as like interacting with these objects and these props kind of freed me to just tell the story, use my body to tell the story in that way and to create these juxtapositions that the audience could see and make their own surmise things from.
Thank you. That's so insightful. Um, I want to ask the same question to Joyful. Joyful, why solo work with all the other things that you do? And how did you get pulled in the first time? Ooh, you might be muted, or maybe that's me. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
that's me. What are we in 2020 again? My God.
I think you might be muted.
Are you muted? Um, okay, what was I saying? I was saying I grew up with like radical, scrappy theater makers who have always sort of made their own work. And so I think that was always in my bones. And then spent my 20s doing devised theater. And we did a lot of creating our own characters, and creating like collectively, but also our own pieces that fit together. So I've always just been really excited by the creativity and the newness and the making something out of nothing. And then I kind of also accidentally fell into solo theater because I was in grad school and I was like struggling with like, what is my project going to be? And my advisor read all these personal essays I had written and he's like, that's your project. And I was like, oh, you're right. And that's kind of ever since then, it's been history. I will also give like shout out to Anne Randolph. I did a workshop with her early on in my solo work. I don't know how many of you are familiar with her, but she's awesome. And that's how I sort of also started transitioning to helping other people write their solo work, which I find equally inspiring to making my own. It's so rewarding to watch people become empowered by finding their own voice and making their own work and speaking truth on stage. Like, I think we think of like stand up comedians getting to say the truth, like the thing that you're not supposed to say. But I also think that in solo theater, we get the same opportunity. Um, and there's just endless magic in that. And from teaching solo theater for years, one of the paradoxes that I find so magical is like the more personal the artist goes, the more universal the experience for themselves and the artist. So I think it's magical and healing and I love it.
That is so cool. It reminds me I mean, when you were talking about the kind of generative ensemble work that you were doing in your 20s, I'm not sure if you used the word devised, but I was doing similar work in my 20s. And like when I heard that word, I was like, what's that word? I've never heard that word before. And very few other people had either. And now I feel like it's become such a cornerstone of all conversation about how work gets made. And so I love that. And can you say where you were doing that work in your 20s?
Yeah, right here in the Bay Area. My group, we fell apart under the own weight of our youth and ignorance, but we made some really great work before all that fell apart. And we were sort of shepherded by the San Francisco Mime Troupe. We
Right.
were like their kind of second stage, and we had this partnership with Pig Iron Theater. They came out and trained us, and then yeah, we were in bars, and then we graduated to the Brava. Yeah, so were you also in San Francisco? Were we like doing that and not crossing?
Well, I was doing a lot of training up at Del Arte in Blue Lake, and then brought some of that training down here and created a company. But we did one scripted work very successfully, and then we tried a devised work that was much more difficult and much more sprawling, and was less successful, but was really successful for us as a company, but less successful, I think, for audiences.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to hog the space, but I'm from Humble, and the Del Arte folks are like my aunties and uncles. So we now
Okay.
talk. Okay.
We have people in common.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to AJ. AJ, you
Yes.
are such a terrific ensemble actor. You rocked the Tempest Ensemble at Marin Shakes this summer. So you are fully capable and extremely good at working with lots of other people in many different capacities. What possessed you to embark into the dangerous waters of solo performance?
And listen, again, I was literally on a bus going through like Arkansas and the Ozarks, and the bus was refurbished by burners, and we were just on a mission. And the Pulitzer people kind of were in touch. They were our group sponsors, and I was like, you're going to write an essay for us about what it is. And literally we were jostling down the road, and there's the bumpy road. And I went into the essay, and the gentleman was like, you can write, you really, really can write. And I was like, oh shit. Because I I then sent it to my sister, and she says, you have a story. And none of you have met my sister, but she's a force to be reckoned with. And when she says you have a story, you start crafting the story. And I was fortunate enough, I happened to be listening to the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for a Devil. And for whatever reason, because of my circumstances of being incarcerated for 23 years, The piece that came out of my head is, can a monster go home again? And I just kept listening on a loop, sympathy for the devil. And that's where my first lines for the show came on. And I know you asked me the why. Well, it was like Calistoga. It kept bubbling up, and I was like, I got a line, and I bubble it up. I've got a paragraph, and then would repeat it, and I was like, whoa, maybe I've got something. And then the company that I'm with suggested I go speak with a young woman by the name of Joyful Raven. And um, she proceeded to kick my butt where I didn't know I had a place to be kicked. And out from that came the bumpy road less traveled. And for me, I will sum it up in one word. The reason why I'm involved in solo performances is I can't afford therapy. So I get up on a stage. And it was a challenge to work with you and have directors and other people that I was learning with. And I was able to steal, beg, and borrow from all of you. So I'm hoping that experience will enrich the audience when I go back out and start performing again.
I am so excited for that. And rumor has it that might be happening in the next few months. Is that true?
It is a very, very true story. Along with one of the lines in the show is, how many of you are dreamers? More importantly, how many of you actually follow your dreams? Well, I had the opportunity to look over at the Repertory Theater in Berkeley and set a dream and set a prayer. And 3 years later, on January 15th, I get to stand my ass on the Rhoda Theater, where artists like John Leguizamo have performed and people have rocked the house. I'm butterflied scared, but damn if I'm not going to have a good time.
Yes. Um, that's such a great transition actually to this next question that I want to ask is it's about having a good time. And for all the terror that solo work might instill in an artist contemplating pursuing that path, I wonder if each of you could just say a little bit about the joy that fuels you in the work. Like, where do you find that joy? And maybe it's different every time and you can't predict where the joy is going to come, but I wonder if there's like a moment that you can reflect on and share with us of like a moment where you were like, this is why I do the thing. And I'd love, speaking of joy, I'd love to start with Joyful.
No, she's muted again.
Yeah.
Damn you, Zoom, you got me again. um, let's see, joy. Well, I was given the name Joyful, so I've had to be joyful my whole life. Um, well, I'll take it into the joy, but one thing I find from myself and watching other people go through it is in order to create your own work, you kind of have to go through the full hero's journey every time. Like I don't feel like you're ever let off the hook. It's like you go through the like, I'm going to go do this and it's going to be amazing. And then you got all the ideas and then you get into the middle and you're like, why did I ever do this? Like, who thought this was a good idea? Like my students and me every time before, like, bar none, they're like, why did I do this? This was a terrible idea. And then after I see their faces light up and that like absolute liberation, I think part of the joy is actually the facing of that fear. Like the joy is derived from doing this very challenging thing. And in a society where things are really challenging, but we have a lot of, we often give up on those things that are really pushing us. So, yeah. So for me, the joy comes from the relief and the the moment also in after the show when everyone reminds you that your story is their story. That moment when you realize you have done something brave and it hasn't just been for yourself, it's been for somebody else who needed to hear that. And yeah, so I've always told really risky stories on stage and I often have thought it's like a mental disorder, but then the joy comes from remembering that it's not, it's just art.
I love that so much. I mean, I don't know if I'm making this up, so I'm just going to say it as if it's true, and then maybe it will be. But I think that there's studies that say that the most terrifying thing that the majority of human beings on Earth find terrifying is speaking in public.
Absolutely.
And I think all theater is kind of like we do it because we want to rehearse the audience for their lives by modeling,
Mm.
presence, listening, responding truthfully. And there's no clearer model when it's just one person in space doing that. I mean, it's similar when there's a lot of people in space with costumes and scenery and music and whatever, but it's even more kind of absolutely clear when it's one person. And yeah, you are living the hero's journey for that audience just by standing there and delivering a story. Um, AJ, is there a moment that you can think of that kind of fuels you to go back to the work that brings you some sort of joy or satisfaction?
Mine is really simple, and I know it might blow you away, but it's the community that as a solo artist, right? Solo artist, but it's a community. I have a solo mama. I have 3 or 4 directors. I have 2 or 3 dramaturgs, and then I say this is what's come out of me, and then these people, the community, start putting me Frankenstein's monster together, and then there's this cohesive like, all right, we believe in you, we need you to believe in you so that your audience can believe in you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Shit. I better get my lines right then, right? And it's like, well, you don't have to really get your lines right because it's your story, but it's the community for me. It's like taking that mind to the pen to the paper and then being vulnerable enough to say, hey, what do you think? Well, this is what I think. This is what I think. And I can get in a tussle with you because I trust you with my performing career. So it's the community aspect of it. Not having it or not having the right community for 23 years made me crave community and made me crave asking for help. And that's what I've found in my solo work is by asking for help. I get this great love and I get people's insights that may not have been exposed to my story. My story is about wanting to change the perception of what it looks like for an formerly incarcerated person to be right next to you, sharing something very vulnerable, and then hoping that you'll put your arm around the work and then the person, the new person. So that's the part. I thought I said it was going to be simple. I lied.
I love that so much though, and it is such an unexpected answer for, a solo performer. But I'm reminded of like that truth every time I realize that the moment the performer steps out on stage to perform the show, all of a sudden that performer has a whole new set of scene partners to figure out the same material with. But I love how clearly you framed the journey to get to that moment as also moments that are like full of that community impact and that community knowledge. I love that so much. Janae, excuse me, Janae, um, what is bringing you joy when you enter the solo realm? What fuels your satisfaction?
Well, I think so many things that Joyful and AJ said resonate. I love this idea of the hero's journey. My friend said something that resonated with me about this show. She talked about doing things that are violently new. And that's what this felt like, where it was like I felt like I'd accomplished so much. And I was also like ripped open to make space for this. And so, anyway, that was just an aside. But yeah, I think there are 2 things that brought me joy. And the first of which, like AJ, you mentioned like the vulnerability of getting feedback and talking to, incorporating people's feedback. And I had a moment where like I was listening to someone and taking in their feedback and it made the show so much better. And there was this one point where they gave feedback, and I said, no, actually, no. Like, it needs to be this way. So it was the vulnerability to like let something in, but also like the clarity of like what I wanted, and getting to a place as someone who feels a little vulnerable about like having my own words or my own worldview out in the space, like being able to take in information, but then also say, this is where I'm going, was really, it felt so grounding and like was a powerful moment for me. And then the other thing I'd say is how I've been looking at solo work, has particularly in the kind of work that I was doing, was looking at it as having curiosity and exploring like moments and exploring images. And so watching the show, or having done the show, there'd be this moments where I was like, oh, that didn't work. And that's okay, that's fine, right? But then there'd be moments where I was like, oh yeah, no, that worked. And so being able to accept the continuous evolution of like the imperfection of what I'm presenting and sharing, and delighting in the moments where like it resonated, and then seeing the moments and holding them with grace where I was like, oh, I could tweak that. Those are two things that felt really joyful for me, because it felt like just immense growth in myself and like grace that I was giving myself.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I think we basically have time maybe for one last question for all of you to answer. Um, And the question that I want to ask you, because I know a lot of the folks who are in the intensive are listening to this broadcast, and so are kind of in the midst of their solo performance journey. I'm just curious if you have any advice that you would offer, like a younger you, or the you at the beginning of your first solo process, or just advice that you would give, as someone who's gone through it, to somebody who hasn't yet. And I want to start with AJ.
Wow. The advice factor, and I don't know that I'm one to give advice, but I will say this: cherish the moment. There will be moments that will pop here, there, and everywhere within your creative process. And then the very first time you step out onto that stage and you look to fill the audience, find that moment, sit in that moment, and then let that moment fill you, because it'll eventually fill your audience with the message and the warmth that you want to share with them.
That is such great wisdom. I think someone, and forgive me, whoever it is that gave me this advice, who said, like, on your wedding day, make sure you look out at all the people that are there to celebrate you, because it's a really special moment, and you'll be reminded of what the whole thing is. And I love that instead of letting that moment be terrifying for you as a solo performer, taking in all those eyes, all those bodies listening, that is like the breath that's going to fill your sail for the performance. I love that. Um, Janae, how about you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I typed out, because I like type things out, was like leap, like find your incubators and leap. So I love that you and Don have created this as an incubator for people who are, gestating ideas. Analog Theater Company was an incubator for me. Like, I would not have done this show if they didn't have a space where people could just perform anything and there was grace in the room. So find your incubators, and also, leap before you're ready. Like, I submitted myself to like Berkeley ground floor, and I was like, whatever, when I was still trying to figure out what it was. And then I submitted to Counterpulse, and I didn't get into the thing I submitted for, but then they created this other thing. So just like leap, because you never know it will appear. And that will also, for me, like, I like forcing functions. So that pushed me to actually do it. And then we talked a lot about like community. I am someone who doesn't like to ask for help from people, and so I'm still learning this lesson, but you can build so much more, like bring people into the journey, bring people to be your directors, your dramateurs, like AJ said, and also talk about it with people. When I was working on my piece, one of my friends heard um, some of the text and was like, "Oh, I'm working on that because I'm thinking about it for this pottery piece." And so ideas are in the air and in the ether. So um, start to communicate with other people because you'll clarify what you're interested in, and then you'll learn about what they're doing. That's me.
I love that. Just because I have the opportunity to ask you, like in front of the whole world, um, now that you've done this solo piece, and I mostly know you as this incredible actor of more traditional scripted material. Like, are you planning to do a lot more solo work? Is that in the cards? Or like, how do you imagine the balance between your work going forward?
It was violently newgram, and I'm still piecing myself together. No, I think I am interested in doing more solo work, and I'm going to use like the end of the year to be like, what? How do I take what I have? But I love that you have like these videos because these videos are assets that you can use. Like when I was submitting for Counterpulse, the analog theater company, like I took that little video and was like, this is what can happen. So I'm still figuring out what's next, but I love that I have assets from what I did to help pave the way forward if I decide to go there.
I love that. We didn't talk much about gatekeepers tonight, but isn't it wild that like when you are a traditional performer of scripted material and you create an amazing performance, you're not allowed to use that asset, that video asset, to show people, look how great I am. You
Yeah.
can't. But when you script it yourself and you do it yourself, that's your asset, and that's getting you to the next place. Okay, Joyful. How about you? What advice would you give?
Yeah. Oh boy. I'm going to try to whittle it down because I get really evangelical about solo work. But yeah, just
Preach, preach.
yes, right. It's like you own your work. You are the artist. And like, how empowering is that? But I'd say, like, trust your story and trust that your story and your work matter because I can't tell you how part of the hero's journey is that the inner critic is going to come at you really hard because it wants to keep you safe. And so I hear that the inner critic is one of the loudest voices of the inner critic is like, nobody cares. Why does this matter? I hear that so much. And so when that voice arises, just see it as the inner critic and see it as a sign to keep going. It is not the truth. It is just a voice trying to keep you safe. And if you like stay strong enough and withstand that and go to the other side, there's like massive empowerment on the other side. And to like concur with what AJ said, one of my students, Benji Lasso says, don't miss the show. Don't like, right? It's that wedding moment. Don't miss the show. Like, be present. And then, your story's not going to come out in the order. So like, you got like, it's going to be a mess before it has order. So like, trust yourself to withstand the mess so that you can, let it be messy before it comes together. And yeah, and yeah, do it in community, like everyone's been saying.
Great advice from someone who is a midwife of solo performance. Um, the last thing I want to ask each of you, which is not like a super deep question, but I just want to know kind of what's coming up next for each of you, so that the people watching can come check it out, can know you better, get to experience your work not in virtual space. Can we start with Janae and just go around and hear if any of you have things coming up, or if you're a teacher and you're like, come check out my website, I have classes coming up, anything that's coming up that you want to share.
I will point you to my website, and I will update my website. I do a lot of intimacy work, so I have some shows in the new year, but I do a lot of intimacy work, so you can see some of my work on stage. But outside of that, I am looking forward to sitting in my backyard looking at my aloe bush, which has 21 flowers, and the hummingbirds are going to be like buzzing. So that is what I am looking forward to. And if you want to join me there, feel free.
All right, I'm in. Joyful?
I want to sit in your backyard and watch flowers too. Let's see. So some of my students who are working on full hour-long shows are performing at the Marsh in Berkeley on December 4th and 11th. We're calling it solo story sneak peek. I'm working on a new piece myself, if I can ever carve out the time, about so many things, but about growing up in the radical theater and about the yoga to fascism pipeline and the weird thing that happened in our country the last few years. And I teach regularly, so come check out my website at joyful-raven.com. And it's really an honor to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. And AJ, tell us when we can see your show coming up, and is it only playing for one night?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So I'm again blessed and fortunate. This Sunday I will be performing at the Berkeley Rep School of Theater, and I'll be working on new material, which is called the Summer of '72 and Angels. The January 15th, I will be performing at the Rhoda, the big stage in the Berkeley Repertory Theater, and it'll be an excerpt from The Bumpy Road Less Traveled. And then on the 23rd of January, I'll be performing the entire show at the Berkeley Marsh. And my website is thebumpyroad.net.
All
Thank you
right.
for all having us, Dawn. It was a pleasure meeting you, Janae, Joyful, and my man, Graham. Thank you for having us. It's been a blast.
This has been such an awesome conversation, and I hope only the beginning of more conversations that we'll all be having about this work. I feel like solo work is having a moment where the artists are the ones who are calling the shots and telling the stories and making the choices. And I'm so grateful to the three of you for all of your artistry and all of the wisdom that you've shared tonight. So thank you so much. Let's get some love for these panelists in the chat, please. Oh, Dawn, that
Graham!
was a blast. They're
Oh
so
my goodness.
cool.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that conversation. What a treat to get to just sit back, sip my cold pop, and be inspired by great solo artists. Um, Way back in the 90s, I was going to write a solo show. I think I might pick that up again.
Uh, it's time. It's time. We're waiting. Um, yeah,
I mean,
sometimes
another copy of my performance play, my auto drama sold in September, shockingly. So maybe it is time for me to get another performance piece out there to the world.
I think so. Um, Listening to the three of those amazing artists talk, I was just reminded of like what richness there is in our community here in the Bay Area. And it's not always on the Rhoda stage, but in AJ's case, it will be. But it's often on the smaller stages that this richness is just living and performing in our communities. And I'm so glad we got to just get a little taste of all of what's out there tonight.
Yeah.
And I hope that inspires some of the other
Shout
solo
out to
artists.
the Marsh, because
Yes,
the Marsh
yes,
continues to be a venue and a platform for so much solo work in the Bay Area.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, well, we have three more
we do.
amazing solo performers from the Crowded Fire cohort of 2025 to introduce and show their clips. So should we introduce them?
Yes. So up next is Shannon Ferry with Wait, What? At a work party, a woman is asked about and candidly recalls her upbringing with closeted lesbian parents in the 1980s in Indiana. She describes the secrecy, confusion, and guilt of hiding the truth, her teen rebellion, and a moment of empathy that reshaped her understanding of love and acceptance.
The next is Neil Harkins with The Underside, haunting memories of the seashore from a 10-year-old child in 1980 return to take on new meaning during an incident on the streets of Philadelphia 10 years later.
And then closing us out tonight will be Deidre Knight with Candle Meets Smoke, The First Encounter. After an erotic exploration with sex magic, Deidre Knight finds herself in the supernatural world of the beyond. Thrust into this strange purgatory, Deidre comes face to face with Mo, her reflection come to life, and must determine whether or not it's safe to trust her mysterious doppelganger.
All right, so we'll show these videos and then we'll come back to close it out after these 3 clips.
Great.
Okay. Okay. Whoa. Yeah. What was it like growing up with lesbian parents in the 80s in Indiana? Let's go there. I mean, usually these work parties are all small drivel talk. So refreshing. First thing I gotta say, I truly feel for my mom back then. I mean, Academy Award for 21 years of living like the model housewife, birthing 5 children, and keeping a smile on your face, Mom. And I'm especially grateful you didn't throw in the towel at 4 children before having me. But what was it like? I'm not gonna lie to you. It was rough. First of all, we never talked about it back then. Never. I'm talking Fort Knox, Steel Vault, Ghost Files. You gotta remember, being gay in the 80s just wasn't a thing. I mean, to be clear, being gay and open about it wasn't a thing. I mean, at least not in Indiana. I'm pretty sure when my mom sat me down to tell me she was gay, I didn't even know what that meant. I only knew by the end of the conversation, it meant I'm blowing up the family, I'm leaving your dad, you're moving to a new city, and life as you know it is completely over. And it was like, suddenly, everything became a cover-up, a lie for us. My mom and her tennis partner went so far as to build a door in between their 2 bedrooms to make it look like they were going into their own rooms at night. This is the deep secret Epstein file Watergate level scandal I'm talking about. And if you're wondering, was that hard on a 13-year-old who's already going through their own teen crap? Yeah, you betcha. We weren't raised to lie to people. We were good Catholic kids. That means all the traditional values and all the Catholic guilt. We weren't raised to lie to people. Only now we were. And when I say we didn't tell anybody, I mean nobody. Not my best friends, not my teammates, not the kids on the block. I mean, I eventually told my boyfriend about a year and a half into our 3-year relationship. Okay. And now that I'm older, I'm pretty sure that my best friend's parents, the God-fearing family on the block, knew about it because they were more than willing to take me in when my mom's partner came home with 3-pronged forks when we moved into our second house, and I refused to eat off anything but the perfectly good 4-pronged forks that I had used since I came into this world. I mean, 3-pronged forks? Are you kidding me? How much change do you want a 13-year-old to do? You already blew up my cozy little family of 7, caused my dad to disappear for years at a time, and caused a severe rift between me and my favorite grandmother. Okay. Could you not have just let one strike ball go by without hitting it into the bleachers? I'm sorry. I was so mad. Enough to move out of my house as a young teen. But I didn't stay that way. Here's the thing. My mom and I eventually had a really deep heart-to-heart. It was a beautiful conversation about how people were made. Do you think I would have chosen this life for myself? She said that day. Don't you think I would have rather had the easier life of a typical mom and a typical wife? I have to say, even as a stubborn teenager, that really flipped my empathy switch. It went from being something she was doing to us to something she couldn't help follow. She was born that way. Anyway, now I live here in San Francisco and nobody even bats an eye about it. In fact, sometimes I even get a, ooh, lesbian parents, that's cool. It just goes to show you. Your beliefs are just a combination of what you're exposed to and who your peers are. I mean, Isn't that how we got into this MAGA mess in the first place? Group think, am I right? Anyway, that's how it went down. Cheers.
Brine, B-R-I-N-E, saltwater, usually from the ocean. I would fall asleep on the long drive, but that smell would always wake me. It meant we were finally reaching the seashore. My mom and I would visit my great aunt and uncle, and we'd play rummy cub, and, well, there wasn't much else to do because they lived there all year round, and without the summer rentals, it was a ghost town. I would go take walks on the beach by myself, feeding the seagulls stale bread and looking for shells, some with little critters still in them. But one time, under the boardwalk, I saw 2 horseshoe crabs, and they were big ones, adults. I knew that because they were doing adult stuff. But then a big wave came and flipped them over onto their backs, and they were stuck. I went over and looked at them really close, and they were kind of scary. They had all these spikes and a lot of legs, or maybe arms. It looked like the face hugger from the movie Alien, but with pinchers reaching out towards me, snapping. I found a plank of driftwood, and I was able to flip them over, and I had never seen one move before. I didn't know if it was fast enough to get me, so I was ready to run, but they both just scurried together back into the water. Callow, C-A-L-L-O-W, lacking adult maturity or experience. David Lynch, the filmmaker, has this to say: Philadelphia was a hellhole full of fear and corruption, and it was filthy. There was soot on the buildings, and there was a lot of kind of insanity in the air that was very uneasy. I lived at 13th and Callow Hill, cat-a-corner from the morgue. That's real industrial. And at 5 o'clock, there's nobody in that neighborhood. No one lives there. Actually, I lived there, on that exact block. It was my second year of college, and my dorm mate and I found a loft where we could both afford to live off campus. It was a 5-year program where you would work 6 months, then take classes for the other 6. So we alternated. The one who was working would pay rent and buy food. I was first up with an engineering job at a fossil fuel plant. To get there, I bought a used car, a big American boat left over from the 70s. I got up at 6 a.m., but my car wouldn't start. I opened the hood, and there was no battery. It was stolen. So I found a garage, which opened at 7, bought a brand new battery and put it in, then got to work an hour late. The next day, my car didn't start again. I went back to the same garage. Oh, you got bit! An old battery ain't nearly as good as a new one, and where do they know there's a brand new battery to get? In the car they just hit the night before. Well, I put in another new battery and went into work late a second day in a row. Not a good look. That night, when I got home, I took the battery out and locked it in the trunk. The third day, I came down to find my entire back seat completely ripped out and bent out of shape just so they could get into the trunk. That night, around midnight, I put on a black hoodie and grabbed a metal baseball bat and climbed up atop the wall next to where my car was parked. Thus began my vigil. The first hour, a drunk stumbled by. The second hour, a young boy about 10 years old wandered on the opposite side of the street. Now, I had no idea what a kid was doing out that late in the neighborhood, but he looked up and stopped dead in his tracks when he saw me. He was deciding whether to go back the way he came or continue on, because even from up there, maybe 40 feet away, I saw it in his eyes. Fear. He feared me. After a minute, he continued walking very slowly and never once took his eyes off me, just in case I jumped down and started to chase. He finally turned the corner, out of sight. That was what made me give up and go inside. That feeling of anyone fearing me. I didn't like it. I was still worried about my car, but hey, it couldn't happen a 4th night in a row, right? Surely I had some karma saved up, like from the horseshoe crabs, right? But now I think I spent that karma that night. I think every living creature has an underside that's scary to see. But to even see that side, they're probably having the worst day of their life.
There she is. There I am. Me, but not me. My reflection in the flesh. I know what you're thinking. Damn, I look good. She looks impeccable compared to me and my mess. The curve of her body measures the same as mine. Her clothes are my clothes. But it's the essence of soul that makes her cleaner, sharper, more alive. Right. I'm you. You can call me Mo. What kind of name is that? Magical. I just have never heard a name like that before. Well, we can't all be named Deidre Knight. No. I guess not. The air is thick with the taste of brine. I look around for signs of my waking life, all burned away by my dream. Mama's diary and Daddy's urn are nowhere to be seen. The mirror I crawled my way through, the only artifact from my life before now. Most studies me, proud resident of this strange purgatory. What is this place? It's the beyond. It's like the other side, but for the living instead of the dead. You live here? Every now and again. It smells like salt. I know. Don't you love it? Her eyes. Inside her murky irises, something familiar finds its way to me, and I to it. But only a glimpse before being swept away by her eyelashes, replaced by a seductive charm that holds me captive, searching me. So, Miss Deidre, I take it whatever mojo you got must pack a whole lot of oomph. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, tricky little fish. Oh. Suddenly, I'm underwater, swimming above myself just moments before, spellbound by the incantation inherited from my mother's diary. Drunk on grief, desperate and massaging myself, my liquor-soaked panties dangling from Ellis's coat pocket. My eyes fix onto my shadow puppet, burning in candlelight and flame. Shame burning my cheeks. You stay away from me. Whoa, slow down, little fish. I'm just trying to help. If this is how you help people, I don't want it. Well, I didn't mean to hurt you. Hello? Let me out of here! Hello? You're swimming nowhere but upstream. Oh. This is a dream, isn't it? You tell me. Ow! Does that feel like a dream to you? I want to go home. What? Back to your one-sided love life with Ellis and talking to your dead parents through a couple of candles? Oh, baby, you conjured me. Which means you've got business to handle, and trust me, neither one of us are getting out of this silo until it's all said and done. Now, if getting home's what you want, I can get you there. but only if you let me.
Oh my goodness.
Ah.
So
How?
fantastic. It I'm just blown away by all of the different styles and work that we've seen tonight, as well as the conversations about the work. And Dawn, like I'm remembering all of those pieces less developed than we saw them, and I can only imagine like where they're gonna go as they continue their journey to full production pieces.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Ah, I'm so
Um,
proud.
I'm so proud, and at the same time, I'm like some of that has nothing to do with us, and I'm just like, please, like
Yes.
more.
Yes. Yes. Most of it has nothing to do with us.
Yes,
And yet, we were there. We
I
were
feel like
bedside.
proud witnesses to the beginning of some of this work.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
great.
I think we're at the end of our festival for this year. Um, But before we go, I just wanted to shout out that this program and many other programs that are part of Crowded Fire's awesome initiatives for artists, you can find out more information about all of those at Crowded Fire's website, and you can apply to those programs, including the solo performance intensive or our audition workshop, or the many other programs that Lee mentioned at the top of the broadcast.
Yes. And again, a big thank you to our wonderful panelists, tonight's round, as well as Wednesday's round. Of course, to our solo performers who leaned into vulnerability to share their works in progress. And we must thank the wonderful folks behind the scenes, Lee Rondon Davis, of course, Riley Allison, who managed all the technical aspects of this stream, and special shout out to Ray Oppenheimer for the use of his space and his equipment and his fiber optics.
And I just wanted to thank you, Dawn, because it is such a pleasure to get to share this space with you and to do this work every year. I look forward to it like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, Graham. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.